Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Anarchy Arena podcast. As some of you may remember from a few weeks ago, John and I went to a Black Lives Matter / anti-racism protest here in our quaint little Tennessee town. Today on the show, we happen to have the organizer of that event with us, Mr. Michael Sangetti. Michael talked with us about what went into the organization of that event, the fallout from that event, and where he hopes we get to in this country, as well as so much more. Make sure to take a look at his social media links in the video description, as well as the show notes for this episode. And with that, we go on to episode 34 of the Anarchy Arena podcast, The People's Episode. And welcome back, everybody, to the Anarchy Arena podcast. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Today is going to be an interesting episode, to say the least. For those of you who are regular listeners, you might remember a few episodes ago, we had my dad on, the retired police officer, and we happened to mention that right before we had him on is the day that John and I decided to go and join a protest here in our small, quaint little Tennessee town. We had a blast, as we talked about. We learned a lot of things. We genuinely enjoyed ourselves, despite some of the issues that arose from other people there. And we have someone to thank for that. And we actually have that person here on the show today. We have the person who helped organize that event, and we thought it'd be an interesting person to bring on and talk about everything involved with that. So, listeners of the Anarchy Arena podcast, I give you Mr. Michael Sangetti.
Hey, yeah, I hosted the protest here. I kind of been getting into activism, especially since COVID started up, and then with the George Floyd stuff, I just was really hoping to start to make a difference. I guess that's me. I'm just pretty. I bartend here in Murfreesboro. Grew up here. Went to Seagull, all that good stuff.
Okay, so this is actually one of the questions I wanted to ask, which is what got you, what was the spark that made you become politically active? And you kind of just answered it, which was the George Floyd murder. Did you have any political leanings before that happened, or did something just click in your head? And
well, I mean, so what kind of got me started down the path, as most people who grow up here in Murfreesboro, I was a Republican decades ago. And I say decades, it was like 10 years ago, but, really just, they say it a lot, but getting out to college and getting out of the comfort zone really kind of expands your horizons. And it was a process. My mom is actually another activist. She was also at the protest and kind of helped co-MC it with me because I was kind of everywhere making sure, fights didn't break out. But she's been active in it. And so I've had an ear to the ground about the activist community. But what really clicked, it wasn't just the George Floyd stuff. I broke down and was curious because I considered myself a liberal, and, I was like, oh, Bernie Sanders is great. That was, 4 years ago. And Bernie Sanders is great, blah, 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 Medicare for all. And then he lost. And then recently here, he lost again. And that just kind of radicalized me, I would say. And I broke down. I bought Das Kapital by Karl Marx. And then I bought the Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels. And I read those. And then I was like, holy crap. No wonder people crap on this so hard and don't want you to read it. Everything he says is emphatically true. And so I got into Lenin and before all this happened, I've been a member of CPUSA, which is Communist Party United States. I've been a member there for about 9 months now. So you could say I was already pretty radicalized, but I was just kind of tired of sitting on my ass and like, having to go to Nashville for protests. It is the major city center, but Murfreesboro, it's quaint, but it's not small anymore. I remember 15 years ago it was small, but we got over 100,000 people here. We should be having actions here. And so I just wanted to do something, and it started with just me by myself. And then without a week and a half of planning, I planned that protest. And we had I think the newspaper said it was about 200 people. So that was really cool. But yeah, it just kind of motivated me.
Well, we're certainly glad that you did decide to set it up. And I have to say, it went off pretty well, all things considered. And by the way, you can tell your mother I said this. Man, that is not a woman I'd want to see pissed off in a dark alley. I don't think I'd want to see her pissed off in a well-lit alley.
Yeah,
no.
How the fuck did you make it out of your teenage years?
Right?
Barely. I'll say that. Italian mother, Italian me. We get used to getting yelled at for minor things, so you toughen up pretty good.
I mean that's awesome to hear. I've talked about this before. I was a libertarian, like almost 10 years ago, about the same amount of time. And what kind of flipped me, I haven't read Das Kapital, but I do subscribe to anarcho-socialism, and what got to me was when, as a libertarian, I was sitting there like, you fuckers don't actually care about people's rights. You just want all the money in the world, and then after that, you don't give a shit what happens to anyone else. Like, you think everybody here in this little group is going to be a millionaire if the government got off your back?
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure, and that's what I say. I actually made a comment the other day. I said, the difference between a libertarian and a Republican, a libertarian and a Democrat, because they actually align a lot more than people think. The difference is like empathy.
Yeah.
It's me, and just not a whole lot of we when, Marx talks about it a lot, and Engels goes really good into it. But it's like, human nature is communal. Like, it is like, the hierarchy is structured and, made up, but like human nature's always been communal. There's just the hierarchy continually changes. And so you need other people to survive. You cannot survive without other people. And that's where I just kind of don't sign on to libertarianism. And you say you're anarcho-socialist, and I'm like, oh yeah, we want the same things. We just disagree about how to get there,
Yeah, I just want to dismantle everything and then have communal living.
Right? Yeah. Being a Marxist-Leninist, I'm more about the path, and then but the goal is the same.
Nah. we're still comrades. It's okay.
Yeah. No.
John just wants to see more things burn along the way.
Hey, no. I'm all for a revolution. All for it.
But it's funny because I was reading some news articles that were talking about how the pandemic has radicalized millennials and Gen Z and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there going, it wasn't the pandemic that did this. It's the fact that we felt like we got lied to.
Yeah.
I was so disenfranchised when I went to college to go into communications and found out that my degree wasn't going to mean shit, and I was going to get paid crap for the first 5 years of my work, and then maybe I'll make money, but it's not likely. And I was okay.
No. Yeah, and the biggest lie we're told, and why I think a lot of Gen Z and millennials have kind of became radicalized. The biggest lie we're told is that in socialism or communism or even anarcho-socialism is that you're groomed from birth to work and die. But then you do a pretty critical analysis of, capitalism here in America, and it's arts degrees are shamed. You're supposed to go get a degree in communications or business or civics or anything like that, or engineering or a STEM major. And it's because those are going to make you the most money. And then if you don't go to college, you're literally just a laborer. And so you work until you die. Like, you're groomed to work until you die in the system we exist in. So, like, that's the biggest lie. And then another reason I feel like why the younger generations, like millennials and Gen Z, have become radicalized is versus like Gen X and the boomers, is they had this enemy that was the USSR and like big bad evil. We didn't grow up, most of us, like in a time to remember of the USSR. Like, 1991, the Soviet Union fell. I was born in 95. So the enemy they tried to give us was China, but like, we're not fighting proxy wars with China, and you're not going to get kids to care about the trade war we're having when we're struggling to just find jobs that pay us enough to live.
Right.
So the failure to propagandize an enemy that is socialist, I think, has opened people's minds more towards the idea. It's a good idea to me. I mean, it's all been propaganda and lies about the Soviet Union for like 80% of it anyways. But, there's no big red scare, big red evil that we have to worry about anymore. This is more like, no, we just need to improve our living here and stop worrying about all this other stuff, like 800 bases across the world that serve no purpose but to scare people into letting us do what we want. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, the one that's always got me is we still have guys sitting on the DMZ line in Korea for a war that ended literally 70 years ago now, and they're just
sitting there.
Yeah, they're just sitting there, just looking at an invisible line, going, "Well, guess they're not crossing today." Okay,
right.
Make
like,
that
a
money.
lot of these countries, they just want to do their own thing, and we're just like, we're poking a bear, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
Like, China just wants to do its thing. China's not expanding. I mean, besides the Tibet thing, which, whatever. But besides that, China's not taking over countries. They're not fueling unrest in Germany or Spain or anything. They're just kind of improving themselves.
And at least they take the time to recognize they have their own shit to worry about.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm like, so yeah, you're like, what are we doing with all of this military resources when like the roads are crumbling? I had a pothole that blew up my tire 2 years ago, and that same pothole's still there, and I think it's on Church Street. I'm just like, what is this? What is this happening for? Like, I don't understand.
Well, I have my own issues with China. They're way too damn authoritarian for my taste. But I think that I think that you bring up a very good point. It's like people, we've been propagandized that communism. If everyone will starve on communism, and I'm sitting here like, bitch, people are starving under capitalism. The fuck are you on about?
Yeah.
No.
Like, there are kids in Mississippi right now that don't have a guaranteed meal at all today.
Like,
and
what's the meme going around right now? If the U.S. saw what the U.S. was doing to the U.S. would invade the U.S. to save the U.S. from the U.S.
Well, funny enough, we're kind of doing that.
Oh yeah,
like the fucking the Trump Gestapo that's in Portland right now.
Oh, well,
and New York,
almost not in Portland, because the mayor basically said, you can fuck off.
Well, and I think they also were told to get the fuck out of there as well. So hey, protesting works.
I mean, you say that, and then they're still sending them to Milwaukee and Chicago
and Albuquerque and everywhere else. Yeah, that's something that, as a person with a Hebrew background, legitimately terrifies me.
Yeah, I have. It's funny. The only people on the right that I've connected with about these protests, because a lot of the right isn't upset that these federal agents are doing what they're doing.
Right.
The only people that is the Jewish community, that like, of people that I know.
Yeah, because we're all going,
like, no,
whoa,
this is fucked up.
Whoa. We remember, or we have family that remember the last time this happened. Y'all motherfuckers need a history book. Just saying.
No, they actually need to read the goddamn history book. That's the problem.
They need to stop reading U.S. history.
Thank you. I was about to say, they need a history book not written in this country.
Because that's also part of the problem. Is like the anti-intellectual movement that's in this country right now. It has led to a lot of the propaganda and a lot of people not realizing what's going on around them. Like, like, for instance, why the fuck is wearing a face mask during a pandemic a fucking political issue? Like, what the fuck is that shit about? It makes...
I think if we had the answer for that, we would have the answer for a lot of other things, too.
I mean, just... we kind of do have the answer to that. That's the problem. Like, the answer to that is we have one side of the aisle that tells people not to believe what the facts that are in front of them, and we have the other side of the aisle that's too much of a pussy to fight them on that fact. They want to bring togetherness to America, which it's a great idea, but the problem is that you can't fight intolerance with tolerance. Like, that's just not how it works. You cannot tolerate intolerance. It is the contradiction of tolerance, is that you can't allow ideas like that to fester, because once they do, then you go away. Like it did, like the SS didn't start with the military actions. It started as a small movement, like the Tea Party.
Mm-hmm.
And then it slowly started integrating itself into the politics of Germany. And then it started their shit. I mean, fucking Hitler suspended elections, which, Captain Dumbass tried to do recently.
Which is funny that he even announced that, because there's no way that Congress is going to allow that to happen. So the whole thing is a giant farce of, ooh, look at me again. Take your mind off the fact that I sent people into cities that I totally should have sent. Let's not pay attention to that. Let's look at how dumb I am.
I think you attribute to malice, which could be easily explained with stupidity. Like you think he had a plan. I don't think he had a plan. I think that this dementia patient just had a phone.
No. He didn't have a plan. The people that are smarter than him, which isn't many, around him had a plan and went, oh, he did that, we're going to use it this way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Anyways, Michael.
No, you guys are good. I'm taking it in. It's no big deal.
So I have to ask, Michael, just because I'm curious, how much actual legwork did it take in setting up the protest that we had?
Well, so that protest particularly, I ended up reaching out to some friends of mine, just for supplies, help. One of them was a speaker. She was the native woman. Her name's Jeannie.
Mm-hmm.
She helped reach out and plan and post flyers and spread the word. And she was really great. And then my friend John, he ended up being able to bring water bottles and signs and posters and stuff to make signs with. So it was really great. A lot of what I was doing was spreading the word, getting the okay from the city and the police department. Just kind of seeing what the boundaries were, kind of keeping my ear to the ground with a couple other contacts I had about what kind of counter protests we could expect. Leading up to that, I'd actually been out at the square every day for almost 2 weeks. Leading up to that, for about 4 hours every day. And I'd already been contacted about the Sons of Confederate Veterans wanting to come and just intimidate me by myself. So, I was just you know what? It kind of was just one of those moments nah, fuck you guys. I'm going to try to bring out as many people as I can and show you that, nah, we don't care about this statue. We don't care about what you think about police. We realize what's actually going on here. And, having conversations with police officers while I was out there and stuff. I was like, look, man, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm saying that the system you perpetuate is bad in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them got it. And what's crazy is I spoke to a few black officers and they're like, wow, I didn't even know all these things because I spat facts about the Cornerstone speech of the Confederacy and a bunch of other things. And they're like, I didn't even know all this. I was like, this is the problem. People don't realize that the first cops were slave catchers.
Yes.
This is the system that it was built off of. That's the base. And so, of course no cops quit or anything, but yeah, you get the mass. You brought it up. It's the war on the intellectual, and it's crazy because people don't want to listen to experts anymore. They want to just listen to whoever's on their side.
Right. Confirmation bias.
So it was a lot of legwork, and it was crazy, and it was scary. I had death threats while I was out there. I got death threats after. I mentioned to you guys earlier, like, there's a Facebook group of 300 people that, like, I'm public enemy number one, and all they're doing is spreading, like, look, he's a statist and a communist, and I had to, like, take all my information down and make my Facebook private and stuff, because I have 1,000 friends, and then, like, people, so, like, information about me spreads generally quickly. Well, so, it was a lot.
Well, first off, I want to say congratulations on your new designation as public enemy number one.
Yeah, we'll get you a blue ribbon.
Yep.
Please.
You can wear it around town. You'll be like, you'll be the town pariah. It's fun. It's fun. You get free drinks. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. My circles love it. I definitely can't go into certain bars anymore. That's for sure. And I couldn't.
We won't ask you to name them, but we have an idea.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't gonna just out people, but you guys know.
Pretty sure we know which ones you're talking about. Now, I noticed something while we were out there, and I'm curious to know if this was a planned thing or if it just kind of happened organically. But I noticed that local PD seemed to be hanging out with our MAGA-wearing, flag-waving friends, while the sheriff's department seemed to be making sure everything was staying copacetic. Was that a pre-planned thing, or did it just kind of work out that way?
So actually, I have to kind of crap on the sheriff's department here for a second.
Okay.
Well, so the MPD is the one who I was in contact with, because, though the statue itself is county property, we were on city property. So right. I was in contact with the captains, and they said they would maybe only have they weren't going to plan to show up in force or anything like that. Before we started, I had a conversation with 2 sheriff's deputies, and one sheriff's deputy, he leans in real close under his breath and kind of giving me the side eye, trying to intimidate me. And I'm not a big guy, but this guy was smaller than me. So I was like, what is he trying to do? And he goes, vandalism will not be tolerated. And I was just immediately taken aback, because I went over there to talk to him, being like, hey guys, this is kind of our plan, blah, blah, blah. I've talked to the MPD. I haven't had a chance to talk to any sheriff's deputies or anything like that. And that's when he says it, interrupts me and says it. And it's like, wow, man, came over here trying to bring the olive branch, but you clearly have no interest in that. And he goes, well, we believe in your right to free speech. I said, well, you saying that already tells me everything I need to know about where you're standing on this.
Yep.
And then, it kind of, when we had that woman, there was a woman in the middle of the crowd who kind of stirred up trouble.
Ugh.
And then an older gentleman came in, apparently trying to be the hero, but he ended up punching a few of our people. And the sheriff's department's just standing there, looking, watching it happen. And I'm over here. I'm the one breaking it up. Me and my 2 guys I reached out to help with a little enforcement. So they were bigger than me. We're trying to separate, so we get the guy away, but he punched about 2 people multiple times, and we got it all on video and everything. And the sheriff's department didn't come over there until I had physically put him out of the crowd myself. And one of the guys that got assaulted went to go file a police report with the sheriff's department. And he goes, oh, we're not handling that. You got to take it up with the MPD. He goes over to the MPD and he goes, well, we are not actually handling that. You got to go back to the sheriff's department. So he goes back to the sheriff's department and they go, well, you kind of deserve to get punched anyways.
Excuse me?
So yeah, absolutely. If I wasn't such in a fluster, I'd have got the guy's badge number, his name, but he said you deserve to get punched anyways. And so he never got to file a police report with these people. And we've been in contact with a lawyer about it. But when I heard that, I was like, okay, so no, nobody here is on our side. That just shows you how deep this goes.
We happen to have one friend who's on the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department, and we got to talk with her afterwards. And I looked at her, I kind of under my breath, I was like, this is probably the last place you want to be on the side you're on. And all she looked at me with, she just kind of looked at me and smiled and said, no comment. I'm in uniform. Understood.
Yeah, like I said, I know a lot of cops. Way I explain to people is cops. The people who are cops are not bad people. There could be very good people that are cops. I've had some great conversations with them. But what a lot of cops fail to understand is it's the system itself that is put in place to oppress people. Something great is like a cop will say, I've never abused my authority. And like the reply for me is no, every cop abuses their authority, whether directly or indirectly, whether you mean to or whether it's an accident, so it's just one of those things like, when I heard that, I was kind of like, I called the sheriff's department the next day and filed a complaint with the sergeant. He was like, there's nothing we can do about it because you don't know who it was. And I'm like, see, that's an issue with the problem. It's like, two guys that went to respond to this. It was only 2 deputies. You tell me you can't find that? Like,
Well, they should have done something immediately.
Well, absolutely.
See, that's the reason why when we did the episode with the former police officer, Chris's dad, I said, I don't think that all cops are bastards, but I think the institution that's being run with cops is what's making cops into bastards. Because I don't think people are inherently evil. I think that's an archaic idea. But I do believe that when you give someone a position of power and give them kind of carte blanche to do whatever the fuck they want, and they can get out of it, that you can create some horrific situations doing that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, I have, and people ask me all the time, like, do you have family members that are cops or EMTs or fire department? Absolutely, I do. I'm Italian, dude. My family's from New York City. And the other side of me is an Irish. We're cops, we're firefighters, we're EMTs. I've got into arguments with them too. But I lost a few family members in 9/11. Like, they're still up there. They're still firefighters to this day, still cops. I have to explain to them, like, look, I know you. I know you're not a bad person. You're my family. But you got to realize some things.
Right. It's because Chris had to hold me back because I was about ready to go over there. Chris didn't want to bail me out of jail, which cool. Thank you.
You're welcome, because I knew it was going to happen. The second he started edging forward to that mic, I looked at 2 of our friends behind us like, all right, here's where it happens, guys. Just get ready. Just get ready.
I mean,
no.
I'm a very passionate person, and like seeing all this shit happen, especially in basically my backyard, like it kills me. I never knew that Murfreesboro had a statue to a fictional character in our public square. Like Johnny Reb is not a real person. I know some people are not gonna like appreciate that, but
it's the
Johnny
truth.
Reb is not a real person. That you could have a statue to Spider-Man there, and it'd be exactly the same thing, except less racist. I can understand having, like, as much as I hate the fucking guy, you could have a statue to Nathan Bedford Forrest there. At least that's somewhat historical to Murfreesboro. But,
in not the best way.
No.
And not the best way. We have much better historical people that we can honor here in Murfreesboro. I actually compiled a list. I'm about to pull it up here in just a second.
Well, look at you doing research. Good for you. I'm impressed.
Well, I was like... Well, when we were planning on going to that to the meeting, I was like, okay, if I'm going to go up there, I need to come up there with solutions, not just problems. And hold on one second, it's taking me a minute to find this. There we go, get that, and there we go. Okay, let's see. Who was the Ridley McLean? He was a U.S. Navy Rear Admiral, fought in 1872 and in the First World War. He was one of the oldest Rear Admirals in the First World War. David Price is from Murfreesboro. Margaret Ray Seaton, who is a NASA astronaut, she's from Murfreesboro. Mary Scales, who is a professor and civic leader, she's from Murfreesboro. We have many options of notable people we could put on that, make a statue out of that would actually promote not only togetherness, but would actually promote people. It actually promote people that did something of worth of note other than a fictional character. Because and I hate statues, but if we gotta have a statue, let's have someone up there that everyone can appreciate,
Well, yeah, and what we were even talking about, so Miss Madeline Scales is vice mayor, and her father was the first black vice mayor and black city councilman in Murfreesboro. And so, like, that was our push. A lot of people don't know this, but Rutherford County has a civil rights plaque down in Mississippi at the Civil Rights Museum that all we'd have to do is just get it here. And it's of all the people that were lynched in Rutherford County as like a memorial to them. And like one of the people is actually Miss Madeline Scales' cousin. And so, you know, this was back in the 60s and 70s.
Oh,
like,
Robert Scales. Is that the guy you're talking about? Robert Scales?
Yeah, Robert Scales.
Yep. That was the other person I had on my list.
Yeah. And so like all we're asking for is like to actually honor people who lived here and did good things. I'm not saying I mean, I'm one of those people, like, I find it insane. We're the only country in the world that like loves a rebellion, like our own rebellion, to where it almost tore the country apart, and that we hate the North for it and then love the South for it. And then in the process, we've lost why this war was fought somehow.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the way the history books have been, and probably, you know, will continue to be written, unfortunately, for too long, has romanticized that time so much. And there's an old saying that where history is written by the winners, and you can tell who the winners were. The winners were white guys with power. That's who the winners were in this case. And they wrote the history books to romanticize it and to put their spin on it and to try and hide, for lack of a better term, some of the uglier truths, which historians are a lot now like, hey, that's not right. Can you please stop teaching your kids that?
No, it's crazy. It is.
Like the whole lost cause narrative that's plagued Southern people. I mean, shit, I believed it until I actually did my own research into it. You want to know what the South's explicit purpose of fighting the Civil War is? It's not states' rights.
Nope.
Like fucking gods and generals and Gettysburg would like us to believe. It was to not change their labor force, aka slaves. The North was pushing for abolition, and the South said, no. You can do whatever the fuck you want in New York, but here in Tennessee and South Carolina and Virginia and, you know, all the other Southern colonies, we don't want that. But like we have our situation set up, and it's like the amount of misinformation that goes into like a 5-year period of our country's history, and how many people hold on to those symbols because it's all about, you know, it's not hate, it's heritage. Bullshit. It's all about hate.
Yep.
I hate to break it to you. Nobody used those flags post the Civil War to bring communities together. They use those flags to intimidate people out of their suburbs, out of their cities, out of their communities, because they weren't the right color, or they were homosexual, or they were Jewish, or they were not a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
And it's a simple Google that you can find how these flags have been used over the last 60, 70 years in counter protest to civil rights movements. Like, where's the heritage if you're what is your heritage if you're counter protesting the civil rights movement? Your heritage is the oppression of black people. And that's it. That's your heritage. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's not even an argument.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Go ahead.
That's the reason why when I had my little speech, I said, this is not my heritage. I do not hold a 5-year period in my region's history to be the only thing that we honor. We have a lot more things in the South to actually be proud of than 5 years of fighting a stupid fucking war where we were the traitors. Like, I don't get this whole idea that, the South will rise again and Southern heritage. No, we have other shit to be proud of. We made
so much other.
We made Nashville hot chicken. We can be proud of that.
We can be proud of Dolly Parton.
Exactly.
Love me some Dolly.
And sadly, and not to be negative during this entire thing, a little bit of positivity. We're slowly starting to see those changes happen. I mean, shit, we're getting rid of Nathan Bedford Forrest bust in the state capitol. That is a giant step.
It is.
Once you start taking out the symbols, you take away the things that people can point at to say, look, that's our heritage, that's our history.
And for a little bit of comic relief, let's be honest here. Not only was that statue offensive, but it was fucking ugly.
It was real bad.
Terrible.
Like, he's got the worst, like, half pained, half O face I've ever seen on a statue ever. Whoever, like, whatever picture or artwork they used to do that, like, what was he doing in the moment? What was happening there? Why did you choose that?
Like, of anything. I mean...
Someone told him that they just lost the war when they took the lithograph for the picture.
And he did the Tim Allen face. Oh,
God.
But go on, Michael. I need to simmer down.
It's fine. It's fine. It's like, I don't know, like, you know, having my family from the north, I've been in Murfreesboro for 15 years. I'm originally from Texas. And what's crazy is, like, yes, there are, like, rebel flags in Texas. But, like, a lot of it is more, what we felt back in Texas was more like state pride and less of Southern pride, especially when it comes to the Confederacy. Like, we realized our state's history, not just like, not like, you know, including the Civil War, but like beyond that, was like so rich and full of, you know, like history and like all this great things that like we took more of a state pride. And like, if you want to show Southern pride, like I always say, like, rep your state or your college team, because like that's like being from your state, that's your pride in the South. Like, you're a state from the South. Or like if you rep your college team, you know, something that's super Southern, like Southern culture is college football, like the SEC, all that good stuff. Like, you know,
except for you Bama fans. Except for you Bama fans, you can stop.
Yeah, no Bama fans. No, that's not really We're more of anybody else, like literally anyone.
War damn Eagle, baby! Woo! But yeah, like I thank you for creating for kind of organizing the movement here in Murfreesboro. And I'm kind of curious, as you see, like we kind of touched on it earlier, but as you see these kind of I don't want to say like a protest, because it's not a protest anymore. It's a movement. As you see the movement growing throughout the country, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like you maybe in some way like helped create that, or like maybe you helped it just a little bit, or do you feel?
You know, sometimes it's hard to really analyze like what kind of an impact you have when you put something up like that. Like, you know, it's not getting shared anymore and people aren't talking about it, but there's still an Occupy movement going on in Nashville right now. They're on day like 30 something or 20 something of trying to occupy the old Legislative Plaza and turn it into Ida B. Wells Plaza and have conversations with the governor. You know, they've been under a lot of scrutiny about like the police taking their stuff, seizing it, all that kind of stuff, doing some real extra legal activities that they're throwing under really vague legal codes. I know the leader of it, or one of the leaders of it, Justin Jones, he's been arrested like 12 times this whole process, and he gets bailed out. They drop the charges and he goes right back to it. And like, I wish I could definitely do something along those lines. The issue is like I'm personally down for the movement, and like I would love to see just it take fire really, and like, you know, everything. But as like a white guy, it's like, you know, it's not my place to sit here and continually be leadership. And you know, what I kind of wanted to do was like get other people, like people of color, to really kind of like want to do more and like, you know, get involved and things like that. So I reached out to, you know, black churches around here and stuff, into like a couple barbershops and whatnot. But I think the mood here in Murfreesboro is, like you said, it's a quiet town, and that's why a lot of people like it. But I know we made some lists after the first protest, and like we got some national attention. I think we got statewide attention after the protest I put on. And, you know, when you see, and from what I've been talking to the Nashville people, it's like when they see smaller towns, not Nashville, doing their own protests, it encourages them to keep going, because obviously Nashville has more people. Obviously more people be able to protest, but like you got to keep the passion alight. And that's kind of what's important about smaller town movements. Like, yeah, we're not going to have 2,000 people every protest we throw, but 200 people at least shows their solidarity. And solidarity forever is kind of like just what I go by. Right. Either somebody being oppressed, solidarity, always make the move.
Yeah, like 200 people at one protest could easily turn into 300 people, and those 300 people could turn into 500 people. Like movements don't start big; they start small. I mean, like case in point, what's going on in the rest of this country, like in like Portland and Chicago, fucking Louisville had a big one that showed up that like got a blip on the radar as far as national coverage. That one actually someone got shot at, so that's fun. And I talked about this with other people, and I said, I understand like protesting and stuff like that. It could be physically and mentally draining. I mean, I think we all can agree that keeping up this movement can physically and mentally drain you to the point where you kind of become a little bit desensitized to it. You're like, I'm done with it. I'm tired of fighting. I just need to sit down. Those are very important moments. And if anyone's listening to this and they're taking part of those protests in Nashville or Portland or anywhere else like that, understand you don't have to constantly be fighting. That's what they're planning on. That's what they want you to do. They want you to be constantly going and constantly on point. Sometimes you need to take a step back and breathe and take it in what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who knows me in my personal life will know that for the 2 weeks leading up to and the week after your protest, Michael, I basically everything I was talking about, whether it was in person or online, was related to it. And I had a couple people, some of them of color, come up to me and go, dude, we had no idea. I said, man, I've always felt this way. I just didn't speak up, and that's my own shit that I got to bear. And a couple days after the protest, I was like, all right, guys, I'm still here. I need a break. I got to recharge, because if I don't, I'm going to burn out. And that's the last thing I want, is to burn out, because this needs to keep going. So yes, take a break. Let yourself recharge.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like, because I went to a bunch of the Nashville protests, as many as I could, before I kind of did something here. And, it's a thing. And like, I was there from the start till like, at one point there was 15 of us left and we're at the courthouse, and it's draining. Like the next day I just I couldn't even do anything, and always take that break. But like, even on your breaks, I was telling somebody, it's like, what, you expect us to post about Black Lives Matter, even if we support it, but everybody's doing it. What does that matter? I was like, but it's the awareness. It's showing your friends that are black or brown or people of color in general that this is where you stand. You got their back. Like, showing solidarity is so important. So even if it's a dumb, turning your Facebook profile black or something, like if it's that minuscule, like that still shows people that like you care. That's important. Like, we talk about it. Like, or have I gotten into the activity? We talk about like, not everyone's a frontline person. Don't feel pressured to actually actively participate in these protests, especially if you have like really bad anxiety or you're just scared. It's a scary thing going up against 150 cops and riot gear, shields and batons. It's terrifying. We were surrounded at one point on Broadway, and it was just like, holy crap. It's not for everybody, but there's other things you can do. You can help organize. You can like bring snacks. There's like medic roll towards the back, and you don't actively have to be on there's so much you can do to help.
Yeah, every little bit helps. It doesn't matter how big or how small, every little bit helps. I think even with all the negativity you've received from having done that, I think you should be very proud of what you accomplished. Aside from a couple of assholes, we didn't really, have anything break down into ridiculousness. I'd like to say that
they fucking knew. I mean, come on, there were like 15 of them and like 100
we outnumbered them 20-1, and I'm pretty sure all of our collective IQ levels dropped about 4 points the second any one of them opened their mouths. Maybe that was just me. I don't know, but I felt my IQ dropping a little bit here and there.
Dude, I lived in the South my entire life. I've been so desensitized to that dumb bullshit. It's not even funny.
And you can also tell your mother when she fired back at the preacher while we were silently kneeling respectfully. After we got done silently kneeling respectfully, when she fired back at him, it was all I could do not to walk up and fucking hug her.
Yeah. She, we grew up really like I'm no longer religious. I would identify as like an agnostic person, but growing up we were Catholic, we were Pentecostal. So like when people like try to push me on Bible knowledge or religious knowledge, like no, you don't understand. I'm like this by choice, not because I don't know it. I know all of it. She knows so much. We have books that like literally delve into like each verse and stuff, like still around the house. That's right. Like she knows what she's talking about when she does stuff like that, and like she's still religious in a sense, not like she was. So it upsets her. People twist like the word, as you would call it. Me, I'm just like no more religion. But
Amen.
Break the chains that hold you down, my brother.
Right? Like I was like, I don't think people get the Bible and scheme, so maybe we should just like not listen to it so much.
Yeah, what's that?
Which is gonna be a battle.
What's that one I showed you the other day, John? If you own a Bible and you've never read it, you're Catholic. If you own a Bible and cherry pick it, you're an evangelical. If you own a Bible and you've read all of it, you're an atheist.
And here I am.
Right?
Yeah. Because I used to be Pentecostal too, so when you said that, I was like, "Oh God,
Oh, it's like you know so much, and people like throw scripture at you, and you're like, "Yeah, no, I know." But then there's like, because my biggest thing is, I had some friends that are like super religious, and they were talking to me about like my political viewpoints and how theirs is tied into their faith. Which, no, thank you, that's so dumb. But
Jesus wasn't a capitalist; he was a socialist.
Yeah, and even then, it's like laws should be made based off statistics and variables and facts, not what your book that's 10,000 years old says. Like, pass. But like they'll throw scriptures at me, and I'm like, okay, so there's that scripture, and then here's this scripture that contradicts it completely 2 books later. If you cannot sit here to admit to me that the Bible itself is full of contradictions, then your opinion just doesn't matter to me anymore. Like as rough as that sounds, it's like I know, no, like you're saying, and it's crazy because like they talk about abortion's killing, but I'm like, okay, but like look at right here in the Bible where it says if a woman who is pregnant commits this crime, stone her to death. Who cares about the fetus? It's like you can't tell me like that's killing at all.
Hold on, Numbers. I think it's 5:11. Yeah, there's literally a part in the Old Testament that gives step by step how a priest can basically cause an abortion out of a unfaithful woman. It's Numbers 5:11 through 31. I'm not going to read the whole thing. That's the listener's homework. Go read through that. It's like it'll blow your fucking mind. You're like, holy shit! Like, no, God's okay with abortion just so long as it's a unfaithful person.
But like, yeah, and the craziest thing is like, okay, like people cherry pick from the Old Testament and cherry pick from the New Testament. It's like, okay, well, you can't sit here and say like if Jesus says, not Jesus, if Paul I think said if you follow one part of the law, you have to follow the whole law. And it's like, okay, so you can't work on the Sabbath, otherwise we're gonna stone you to death. You can't touch dead pig or eat dead pig, otherwise we get to stone you to death. Like, chill, you know what I'm saying? Like just stop. Like, take it for what it is as a compass. Don't take it as like literal laws you should live by.
Right. It was designed as a morality tale, and something else that people tend to forget, which me and my Southern Christian libertarian friend both agree on, is that, hey, people need to remember that this is a book that was rewritten and edited 500 years after the fact in a separate country by a bunch of white dudes.
The Council of Nicaea, like
500 years after the fact.
Well, and then none of the Gospels were actually written by the people who they were named after. No. They were like secondhand accounts. So it's like, even then, it's not like, it is not accurate. And you don't know how much the Catholic Church messed with it, like when it first happened. And then you have where homosexual wasn't a word in the Bible until 1948.
Yeah.
So like, it's not like you're taking it too literally and you're falling for all the traps. And then you call me a sheep. Like I'm a sheep, but you're doing the sheepy thing. Like, unquestioning loyalty.
Like I'm not a sheep. I'm not a sheep. I'm not a sheep. I'm a goat.
Climb mountains.
Well, we've had episodes with the Satanist, and we've actually talked about this multiple times about the path of the goat. We won't talk about that right now. I don't want to implicate you into Satanism here.
I'm already stretching the line, saying like I'm affiliated with a communist party. So
I mean, you kind of already are a Satanist in their minds.
They think I'm godless. It's fine.
Which I mean, they're right, but
not in the way they think.
No, not in the way they think. But yeah, like I just think that people have misconceptions about the movement. They think that it's all about Marxist propaganda and shit like that. Which there is a element of that in these protests. Of course, there is. I mean, it's socialism works through protests. That's how it always works. It's the way it's always going to work. But people also have to understand that like not everyone that's at these things are socialists. Some of them are libertarians. Some of them are liberals. Some of them are are centrist. It's kind of like before Chris really got radicalized, which I thoroughly enjoyed watching happen.
I'm sure you did.
I loved it. Me and Chris were talking about it, and I was like, dude, you got to understand, like, this isn't like the whole like defund the police and whatnot. It isn't about getting rid of the police. I want to get rid of the police, but that's my own personal political beliefs. I know I probably will never see that in my lifetime, but it's whatever. We just like, why the fuck does Murfreesboro PD need a tank? I don't understand that one.
It's
they have two of them now?
Yeah.
Cool. Fantastic.
It's more about reappropriation of funds. So this is funny. I've got a couple of friends that run a small independent newspaper based out of Nashville, and I sent them this information. I found the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget for Nashville PD, and I scrolled through it just to see what the breakdown was. In an over $200 million budget. That's right, folks. You heard that correctly. $200 million. Their training program, their field training officer program, which is designed to go, hey, okay, you, rookie, you just came out of the academy. You get to hang out with this guy for X number of time and learn the ropes in the field. Less than 10% of the budget goes to that, which to me is like, yeah, there's a problem right there.
Like even with the Nashville thing, it's like you have this allotted amount of funds where they can upgrade and do all this kind of stuff, but then you also have the federal government giving them like millions of dollars to arm themselves.
Yep,
that predates back into the 1980s under Reagan, where they were given this extra money from the federal government to literally be a militarized force. Which is crazy. Like, how do people not understand that? Like, this is not what a police force. And I've actually had conversations with conservatives that want to abolish the police. Like, I obviously do as well. But their view is like, abolish the police force, but you would be regulated by the sheriff's department because, sheriffs are democratically elected, which would mean you'd have a form of an oversight.
Right.
And you could remove the sheriff and put a new one in and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I could start with that. Like, I would take that step with you. Obviously, the end goal would be to no form of policing at all. But if that's something we can agree on, whereas the chief of police only answers to the mayor, so the chief of police isn't elected at all, you're like, well, that's kind of messed up.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to say, because like you can't when people represent the public, like especially the police, their job is supposed to be de-escalation, flat out. The problem is that they haven't been trained to do that.
No, they haven't. I've had this conversation with my dad before. The reason why de-escalation, unfortunately, isn't trained is it's a money thing. It is more costly to train de-escalation because it takes more time. And you got to get those boys in blue out on the street as fast as you can. And that's unfortunately the long and the short of it. I don't agree with it one bit. It's just the fact of the stupid world that we live in. Okay, so as we're getting into wrap up time here, Michael, so you're about abolish. So for the people listening, to get your viewpoint, let's say that it happens. Okay, let's say police forces are gone. What system would you like to see in its place? Because I think there's a lot of people on the other side from us that think that we don't have a plan for what that looks like afterwards. So what do you see on the other side of that? Should we ever get that far?
I mean, so like say this does happen. A lot of this is going to be handled by, like, it would, just like you said, where defunding means reallocation. Abolish is still essentially reallocation of funds as well. Whereas you would essentially compartmentalize what we know as the police force into not like unarmed professionals at what they do. So like, yeah, you still kind of need a full traffic enforcement, because people going 100 miles an hour on a 30-mile road is just generally dangerous to the community. But you don't need to have those people armed. You would need them to literally just be like, hey, here's a speeding ticket. Boom. Pay this when you can, but please, just stop speeding. But you would also you'd also have like social workers. They would go to house calls for suicide, domestic violence, all these things. And where a lot of people feel that, oh, they can't handle it. Well, that's a lie, because social workers literally do all of these things already. They just don't have the funding to do it on a mass scale. When you have professionals trained in areas to do that, I actually witnessed a suicide last year, and the only person that they had reached out to me was like, oh, you should call the police chaplain. And then they sent a police officer, like a special unit that has like no therapy training, to come and talk to me. And it was like, it essentially equated to what I felt like waste of time. The issue with, and so when you abolish the police, you also reduce the need for crime. All crime is born out of necessity, needing to feed your family, needing to escape the poverty you live in, like needing to sell drugs to pay the rent, keep the lights on, stuff like that. Like, some people will just commit crime. That's bad. So we take the detectives that we have currently, and that would kind of be your new criminal task force. Literally all they would do is investigate acts of like murder and stuff like that. But like when it comes to things like, if you can take care of the community, you can ensure that everybody has the means for survival, which is like, food, water, place to live, electricity, what we should be considering human rights. You take that motivation out of the need to commit crimes. Like, when you don't have a motivation to commit a crime, you don't commit. When it comes to traffic stuff and how you're traffic instances can like add up to bills, that be a thing. Well, instead of getting a ticket for having a broken taillight, what if that traffic officer was like, oh, hey, like, here's we'll get this changed really quick, and I have some in my car, and we'll just change your taillight out really fast. Take care of that. Or, hey man, your taillight's out. Just take care of that when you can. Just remember, it's out. This one's out. Like, that shouldn't be a ticketable offense. Like, some people don't even know that their lights are out. Some people, purposefully ignore it because they can't afford it. And, when you make things cheaper, and this is why I say is the answer. When you make the standard of living higher, you directly see a decrease in criminal activity. Because when the poorest is up, they have no reason to steal, commit crimes. Like, you would invest in community self-governments. I also believe that like SROs are unnecessary in schools, stuff like that, because that starts the school to prison pipeline. That's a problem. But essentially, you would just invest in care for people instead of investing in policing people. That's what abolishing the police means to me. You invest in the community, not in the people that penalize you trying to get by.
I was going to add stuff to that, but he kind of hit all my points.
I was about to say, I don't think I could have said that any better. The analogy I like to make to people, because a lot of the people that seem to be against it, a lot of people seem to be against like legalizing marijuana and things like that. I'm like, look. Here's the easy way to break down both of these in the same sentence. Are you ready? If I have a choice between going to Joe Blow drug dealer down the street, who I don't know where it came from, I don't know what he's done to it, I don't know whose ass it was up to get to me, I'm going to pay a little bit less. Or I can go over here to Government Man Weed Store. I'm going to pay a little bit more. I'm going to pay some tax on it, but that tax is going to go back to the community, but I know where the hell it came from. I know it was in nobody's ass to get to me, and I know it's not cut with anything, and I know that some of that money's going to go back to my community. Guess which one I'm going to do? Not Joe Blow down the street. And eventually you get rid of Joe Blow down the street, which means you get rid, eventually, obviously it's a long process, as would abolishing the police be, you eventually get rid of that need. That need goes away because you're reinvesting in the community.
And as someone who is a user of the marijuanas, I would rather buy from a store, because I actually had that experience. I went to fucking Colorado, and let me tell you something, that is like the fucking promised land of stoners. Like just a menu of cannabis. Like you could choose how your potency levels and stuff like that. I can't do that with the fucking street pharmacist. Like I just kind of get what I get, and I'm happy to have it, and I'll pay the price that it is. But I like what you said of, community, emboldening the community, because that's the point. That's the reason why we don't need police. That's the reason why I don't think we need police, because police don't do that, especially modern day police don't do that. I mean, you don't see shit like this happening in very small towns because, well, you know who the police chief is and he has accountability. And much larger metropolitan areas and even like towns like ours, you don't know who's on the fucking police force because they're in and out all the fucking time, and a lot of them don't live in the community. So that's the reason why I think that's the reason why I'm for abolishing police, and not just for the anarchist reasons of I don't think a person should tell a person how to live. Weird, I know, but I'm one of those weird ones. I don't know how to paint this picture any better than what Michael or Chris have said here. They kind of hit all my points. So,
I just feel like we get really like stuck on the legalization of marijuana, and like I definitely agree with that. And I'm a user myself, so like I'm definitely pro that. I think we get stuck on that when it comes to like decriminalizing things, because like it's super important, and like if you legalize something like that, especially if you have alcohol, cigarettes already legalized, which will kill you eventually, that shouldn't be something that's criminalized. But I think we get stuck because as it is something that is super important to decriminalize and make sure all these people that have been put in prison for having a dime bag or something, like yes, absolutely. But I think with policing, it should be more community based, because when somebody who's like kind of when you feel like the police are looking out for you, essentially just look at like white suburban communities versus black communities in poverty, or just really any community in poverty. There's the look of like white suburban communities look at the police as a protector versus black poverty communities look at police as a threat. Essentially speaking, is you have to decriminalize what makes people like get to that, treat drugs as a mental illness. And I mean, I don't classify weed as like the same kind of drug, but instead of criminalizing cocaine or somebody who's addicted to crack, instead of making it illegal, just be like, hey, you have all of this dope and have OD'd twice, let's get you some help from a professional drug counselor.
Treat addicts like they're like they have a sickness instead of treating them like criminals. What a concept.
Crazy, right? Like, and it's crazy where I get this from, but I think it's great. I think I've heard it somewhere else before, but what most sticks out of my mind is I was watching Doom Patrol on DC Universe.
Hell yeah, I love that show.
so great, yeah. But Cyborg meets this girl, and she said nobody should be judged by the worst thing they've ever done. And like that, like kind of hit me, because I'm like, no, like just because somebody OD'd in a car 12 years ago, and then they're a different person now, you shouldn't bring up what happened 12 years ago, because they're not that same. It's like
Right.
George Floyd, they used like his criminal record past to discredit him. Well, not only was it 13 years ago, but it doesn't really matter, because why are you judging somebody for the worst thing they ever did instead of judging by the best thing that they ever did, or what they can even do? And so when we get to talk about weed, I'm like, for sure, I have my own issues with Colorado and how they handle it, because like it's a weird system that most of the the dispensaries there are like white owned versus like black people in Colorado are dealing marijuana for decades, but
and still in jail for it too. You know?
Yeah, and that's just more capitalism bullshit, and how capitalism is propped up by white supremacy and sexism and all of the good things that we love here in America, apparently.
Whew, I don't think we have time to get into that one.
Yeah, like that's a whole other thing. Definitely wouldn't hate coming back on here to talk about some more stuff anytime. But that's definitely a long conversation.
And that's my calendar getting added to right now. Dates will be confirmed later, listening audience.
Oh, we should get Yogi in for like the next time we get Michael back in.
Ooh, yeah, that would be a good dynamic, actually. I think Yogi would have a lot of fun here.
But yeah, I guess since we're wrapping up here, Michael, do you want to like promote anything that you're doing right now? Potentially like any social media or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, people are more to follow me on Twitter, Instagram. It's just the Sangetti. I don't do a whole lot. I just kind of spread awareness. I know my group Resist Murfreesboro is holding a school drive. We're looking to donate like PPEs and school supplies to teachers because they're being forced back into schools and they're having to buy a lot of this they're not getting extra funds. I have some friends that are in the Rutherford County school system, just worried to death. And so we're doing a school drive. If you want to go to Resist Murfreesboro, we have, there's a page. It's all over the page about the school drive we're doing. I'm going to, if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram at the Sangetti, or you want to just friend me on Facebook at Michael Sangetti, I'm going to be starting soon. It's just going to be an online book, kind of go over Marxism and read like Das Kapital, and Manifesto, and some works by Lenin, stuff like that.
And we will have all those links down in the description and the show notes for you guys. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. And as you previously mentioned, we will definitely have to have you back for the second half of every fucking thing else going on in the world right now.
That's a great title.
That'll be the title for that episode. Every fucking thing else going on.
Yeah. No, great. Yeah, absolutely. Got a lot of fun. I had a good time. Thank you so much for inviting me on here.
Yeah, no problem, dude. Keep resisting.
For sure, man. Solidarity, guys.
And there you have it, folks. Episode 34 of the Anarchy Arena podcast, the People's episode, featuring Mr. Michael Sangetti. Now, as you heard, we're obviously going to have him back for another episode of every fucking thing else going on in the country. That'll certainly be an awesome conversation, just as this was an awesome conversation. We really enjoyed having Michael on here and having him talk about what went into the protest and the fallout, as well as everything else, but not quite everything else, because that's what'll come the next time Michael shows up. Thank you guys so much for listening. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and as always, we will see you next time on the Anarchy Arena podcast.